it was the best episode. This episode was so emotional. Yeah. Jesus Christ, this episode was incredibly emotional. This is, I think, it's the best. This is one of my favorite episodes so far of My Academia. It was just super emotional. I keep saying it, but I rewatched it once, right, doing the review here, and if you see my reaction, I started crying like a baby. Gentle return, it was just super, yeah, I keep saying emotional, but honestly, I kept pondering a little bit, like, why do I care so much about the Gentle? It's because of Husha is the best. No, but, I've always been a sucker for redemption stories, I think, primarily. I always liked seeing some bad guy returning, doing good stuff, right? Well, obviously, Gentle Criminal and La Brava storyline was never really like, oh, these are the uber bad guys. But no, they're like, they're very much like morally gray, he's doing crime to get like social media points, yeah. He's very much like a misunderstood good person in a way, right? So very morally gray, and, returns as a hero now, which was great. And but the other scene was also awesome, because I like the concept of like a guy going to prison, right? And then it's like a prison riot or prison escape. So I really love this in here because, it's a classic scene, right? All the bad guys can escape, the prison, but then this guy's like, no. It's like, no, criminal is wrong. So he beats them up, yeah. So he's like, captures all the bad guys by himself instead, yeah. Instead of letting the other guys escape, he's like, no, I'm gonna stop you, right? And then he's wait for the cops to get there, which was a really, really good scene. And then, of course, they hired him, I guess, right? We really knew that La Brava basically already got hired by basically the feds, right? Like, oh, you're just a good hacker girl, why don't you come and work for us, right? We didn't know that, so I love this in here. They're like, oh yeah, but he basically is on, he's been like pardoned for this crime now because he captured all the other super villains by himself, right? And this is something I think we've seen in a lot of other. I've seen it in Marvel and DC as well, where they usually have some kind of the raft over at the Marvel, right? And it's usually one or two good, previously bad guys that are no good after whatever Spider-Man beat or whatever. They're like, actually, I don't want to be back anymore. Yeah, they either not escape, or they actually will help the cops to, have them and so on. And for example, there was this one thing in reality quite recently where there were like 5 or 6 guys out working, like the building some road or whatever, right? Like prisoners. And then the warden was with them. He had like a heart attack or something, and then they helped him instead and called the ambulance and saved him instead of just running away. They're like, no, we're gonna help this guy, yeah. Like those stories are really, they're heartwarming, right? Heartwarming. That being said, though, I also probably do the same thing, not because I'm a good guy, but that being said, though, if they had run away from him, which he couldn't work because he was dying there, you probably would just have, like they probably would be captured eventually anyway. So what's the point of that, right? But yeah, in this kind of story here, where Gentle has superpowers, you can easily escape them, and many of these villains could probably just escape the cops if they want to, right? So yeah, I think it's a great scene. You see Gentle like, no, I'm gonna stop them. So this scene was fantastic, and then I can watch a little into the next scene when he obviously is helping Deku, right? And overall, I think I really love this episode because I'm just a sucker for this thing too. I really love the conceptual idea, right? That these bad guys, like Gentle and obviously then Lady Nagant as well, coming later to her, and also then Brava, right? And they're coming back to help Deku. So Deku basically, like, he defeated them, but he didn't want to kill them. He gave them like a second chance or whatever, and all this stuff, right? So I liked the idea too that not only is a redemption arc, but it's also like the classic scene where the bad guys, comes back to help the good guy because he's like, oh, you were nice to me, so I'm gonna come and save you now, right? That's always like a classic return, right? And obviously we've seen it in whatever it's a classic shonen trope, to be honest here. I think one of my favorite moments is, spoilers now for Naruto, but you've probably seen it, right? I think one of my favorite anime moments in Naruto, of course, then is when obviously Gaara and his siblings, Kankuro and of course Temari, when they come in, right, and say, and help Rock Lee and so on, yeah, and obviously then Temari with Shikimaru and so on. I mean, that is great, yeah, and Kiba and Kankuro, yeah, that's great, yeah, like they come in there, they were little bad guys in the previous arc, but now God has changed his mind, right, so I was like, I want to be good enough, yeah. So it's classic, right, so I'm not saying this is anything unique in that sense, right? But it's just like a really, I don't know, good, feel-good moment, when the previous bad guy is like, no, I'm a good guy now. And he comes and saves the hero, right? Because this is what My Academia is about to some extent, right? I think to a large extent, it's about being a hero and always trying to do the best, right? And obviously Deku is a very like idealistic hero. He never kills the enemy, right? He's trying to redeem them. So this kind of feeling of, well, these bad guys actually could get redeemed, right? They actually could return and help me someone. Now let Nagant. That being said, though, maybe that isn't fair for Lady Nagant to say that, because she was definitely very gray zone, arguably forced to be a bad guy, right? Because she was an assassin for the government, and then they basically fired her and like hired her. Yeah, so she was doing bad stuff, but it was more like oh, I'm killing off other bad guys, right? For the state, and then basically One for All forced her to be a bad girl as he were killed and so on. So she felt very much like a good. I mean, I think she basically felt like a good person immediately, and her storyline was just sad how she was kind of forced to be like a killer for bad people basically. To be fair, she basically was never really, but still is that even if that's true though, and she was mostly forced to it, she still has that like, oh, I'm an assassin, right? She has like a very like an anti-hero, anti-villain kind of thing going on there, where she's like a bad person doing good stuff, ish, forced to do it, but still, like she's doing really bad stuff though, so she's obviously very like gray zone, not like Toga, she's just crazy, right? Not like Toga-san, she's mental. No, she is just like maybe good, maybe bad, right? Hard to determine her in that sense. But I think that this scene was great, and honestly, I said it in the reaction part, and I admit it here. I thought she was dead. Yeah, I thought she was dead. I was like, wait, isn't she dead? I thought she was like, I thought they killed her off in her previous scene. And the thing is that, I keep saying it a lot, right, with Hero and My Academia, is that he always kills off the female character, like Lady Midnight Sensei and so on. So I thought that the Lady Nagant was dead too, like, because he obviously has a track record of mostly killing off the female characters, or making them lose body parts like Miracle every goddamn arc. So I was like, wait, isn't she dead like the other female characters? Like, honestly, but I guess she was fine. But she also comes in here and fights in some kind of like like a hospital robe or something though. Yeah, like she basically is out of the hospital like a minute ago. Just kind of and also bandages around her, yeah, and her body's like half a mummy, so it's a little bit like, oh, I guess she didn't die, or she was like in a coma or something. It's silly. We probably learn more about the next episode, but yeah, I think it was a really emotional bit. It's like the classic, again, redemption storyline. It's just I'm a sucker for that, right? Now, that being said, though, I do take My Academia as an issue, and this is, I haven't read the manga, right? But this is, I've been spoiled a little bit, obviously, mostly how it really ends with Deku, because, you can't avoid it. I talked to my coworker about it yesterday, and he's also anime only, and he's like, yeah, you can't avoid not knowing what happens to Deku in the last chapter. I mean, I don't know much what's gonna happen from here to the last chapter, but I know how the last chapter ends, right? Because obviously, if you're online, right, you're probably not talking about spoiler, but you'll be spoiled because there's so many memes or whatever. Yeah, it's been impossible not to get spoiled by how it ends for Deku, right? I do love the no ordinary woman memes, though. Those are fantastic. But but anyway, my point is that it's like you kind of sit and watch the anime and you're like, okay, so it's about redemption story, and that's great. But I think an issue, though, on the same time, Academia, I have to bring it up, because I said it probably before. And I think an issue is, though, that it's also maybe too much of that. Like that Deku has this obsession, with like saving Shigaraki. So I think that it's a little bit for good or bad here. It is really cool seeing like Lady Nagant again, then Gentle Criminal, Brava and so on, coming back and helping him, right? And that's again that feel good, like I'm a hero and I'm nice to the bad guys. I defeat them, but I'm nice to them, and then they can change their ways and become good people, right? But he's basically trying to do it with Shigaraki, and it doesn't really feel like it's like a functional, thing there, yeah. So I think a problem in a little way though is that Deku does it all the time with everyone. Naruto does the same thing, right? Talk jutsu with everyone, and sometimes you probably can't talk down like Kaguya the god, yeah, but he tries anyway, you know what I mean? And that I think is a problem though with these heroes. I know they have to be idealistic and they have to be super naive and have to be all this like, I can redeem anyone, but sometimes it's like, well, maybe if you should punch the guy instead. Yeah, it's like, but sometimes it's like, okay, but now you're talking to like Satan here. You probably can't redeem Satan. Okay, it's a little bit that feeling sometimes. Right? I think there's a problem with definitely Deku. To some extent, it feels like he could just be way more effective against some of the bad guys, right? Like the unredeemable one. And honestly, I think that usually would make shonen anime better in general, right? If the main character is a little bit pragmatic on who can I actually redeem or not. Like, maybe every bad guy can't actually be redeemed, or at least or they don't want to be redeemed, right? So to speak. But I don't know. Obviously, Naruto, as I said earlier, with Gaara and so on, is pretty iconic for also trying to like redeem everyone, like Gaara, Pain, and so on. He's also trying to like talk down Obito, Tobi thing. He's that guy. He talks down everyone, yeah. But I mean, that one is probably famous for is Naruto, right? He's probably famous for talking down like half the bad guys. So, but you're like, yeah, that is true. It is a very shonen thing, absolutely. Still a really good episode, though. And obviously, in the earlier Beast episode, that was great too. This is like my favorite episode. Yeah, it was really great as well. The first 10 minutes was just like, you know, how say it? Everyone coming together, right? We see everyone jumping into the warp hole. So Urikara is there, Toga is there. You know, the Twice clones are there. Hawks, All for One, Endower, Rabi, you know, Toya. Yeah, all of that. Those things happening. So quite the action-packed episode in the beginning as well there. Even though nothing really was concluded there, though, I will say. But there was still a good setup for like all the characters. So yeah, this, I think it was, again, probably the best episode this season. I think people will probably say that 120% is better when Deku finally got there. But for me, I think it's more this emotional part that matters more, right? And that episode also really good. But that's like a very cool, like classic, you know, shonen power up, like I can punch you and so on. Yeah, this here felt much more emotional, like seeing all the bad guys coming back and helping Deku. So I think it was like a really well done episode, and also good pace there with all the different characters starting their fights and so on. Even if they didn't actually conclude anything, it felt like something was constantly happening every minute was like something new happening. So very, very like wow, this episode has so much stuff happening. To be fair, yeah, and some new power of one and so on. But whatever. I think one problem with him though, and that I had no problem saying. I think one problem though with All for One, this is episode shows though, and this is heard as well, but is that All for One, of course, can basically have any quirk, right? And given that he can take quirks, the author can give him any quirk, right? And he can basically have like, oh, I can actually time travel, whatever. He can have that quirk. He just never used it for whatever reason, right? So he suddenly has this kind of barrier thing between him and Hawks. And it's like, well, I guess from a plot standpoint that works, because he might have like a barrier quirk he's stolen earlier, right? But at the same time, I think that makes him as a character kind of annoying to actually care about his fights. But he can obviously use, like, you know, come up with any quirk, right? And so I think it's fair to say that's probably because the author can basically Dies Machina him, whatever he wants, right? Well, actually, he can go super fast, but he can only do it once per day, because this quirk is very limited, but it's very good when you use it, you know what I mean? Like, he can have some bunch of different quirks, and he keeps throw them out when he needs them, and that's kind of what he keeps doing, and I think that is one reason why I don't like him as a main bad guy. And it might be better if he was actually, you know, permanently defeated and killed off way earlier in the storyline, like the All Might fight against him in season 2, right? That was the last I ever saw of him. Might be better because he's such like incredibly like godlike main antagonist. Like we see right now, and he's like, "Oh, I'm young again, and I got 5,000 different quirks. So I can do whatever I want." You know, like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, man! Like, how do you defeat this guy, right?" And like I said, it is limited to how much the author wants him to not have powers, right? Because, again, he can obviously have any quirk he wants, right? The author can usually say that, well, he stole this quirk 30 years ago, and he hasn't used it yet, for whatever reason, and this quirk does this thing. He can teleport or whatever. You know what I mean? He can have a quirk. He's hiding it, so it's always like that. And it's a little bit taking his fight seriously, because you expect it to basically always just have some kind of ruse, right? That he has a kind of scheme going on. But anyway, I think it was a great episode, though. I'm just a little bit worried in the future, I suppose, with Hawks and the Hours, so how they're going to defeat All for One. I just don't see them doing it, right? I feel they need Deku or something, yeah. I feel they need someone else. Maybe All Might can get back there and finally punch him for one last time or something. Lastly, we also saw some of the other heroes, like the Smile, you know, Joker and so on. Yeah, we saw some other heroes helping La Brava with that. So I guess there are still some other heroes out there on the sidelines, and they might come and help against All for One, I suppose. Go to Endeavor. Yeah, and also I guess Todoroki, right? And Burning and so on. They obviously after Dabi, and Dabi just left them, so they also probably will go there eventually. But I guess they have to take them like an hour or so to travel there. Yeah, I would guess that Burning takes Todoroki with her to go to Endeavor. Just you know, they can't teleport, so they have to go there after, you know, a certain time. But yeah, come along, guys, if you know this thing. I never understood though how much distance his warping works, right? So he makes this black hole to warp with, but it's never explained how much you can travel that. It seems to be quite short actually. Like, okay, you can travel in Japan, but it's not like, you know, you can't travel to like America or whatever. It seems to be pretty short. So I'm assuming that like Todoroki and Burning and so on can basically like run over there in like an hour or something. It doesn't feel like it's that far away from each other. It's like a city or something. So if you get a car, something you can drive there. Yeah, I don't know. I think the opening shows Ida giving Todoroki a ride, so I guess it's gonna have to go there. But it does feel like that they're pretty close to each other. Like most of the fights are taking place in like eastern Japan or something, you know, like around Tokyo area, Yokohama Bay or something like that. I don't know. There are a couple of if you guys know, but his teleporting seems to be very limited, like the actual distance, right? I think so it is. But anyway, guys, so you guys can have a great day.